You're listening to Sort of Spiritual. Not too long ago, I never would have called myself a spiritual person. But in the past few years, I've gone from being broke, sick all the time, feeling trapped in a job that made me miserable, to easily building a six-figure business, finding the most incredible partner, and creating the freedom to live my life. And along the way, it looks like I've become sort of spiritual. In this podcast, I'm going to bring you the most impactful tools and lessons I've found for personal and spiritual growth. In Season 1, we're diving into human design, my favorite tool for self-awareness, easy alignment, and the catalyst behind my massive life upgrade. I'm so grateful you've chosen to join me on this journey. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome. I'm Katie. And in this episode, I'm going to share all about the parts of human design and how they've contributed to the transformation in my life, but hopefully in a way that you can also see the possibility for yourself as well. I know when people get into human design at first, sometimes it's like, where do I look? There's so much going on. So I hope this will be a bit of a roadmap for you in terms of what I got from the different parts of my human design, and you can map that over to your own human design as well. So I'm going to get into of where I started before my human design journey and where I am now. And then we're going to get into type, authority, profile, the channels, and the gates, a little bit about the incarnation cross, and I hope that it will help you to see where you can look in your design if you're also wanting to transform your life, or if you just want to get into alignment with the amazing human that you were designed to be. And yes, I have a cheat sheet for you for this episode as well for the gates. So you can find it at sortofspiritual.com/gates, and you can learn more about yourself that way if you haven't gotten into that aspect of your design yet. But I won't keep you any longer, so let's get into this episode. To start off this episode, I received a comment on my YouTube channel earlier this week, and I thought it was a good thing to tie things all together. So before I launched my podcast, I made a trailer for the podcast, which you can hear the audio for on here, but I made this really cute video to go with the trailer that's just like a bunch of GIFs put together. And so that's on my YouTube channel. And so I got a comment saying, Katie talks about human design just like Rhonda Byrne talks about law of attraction, which I think he means as an insult as he continues to talk. So he says, but all human design does is tell you what kind of person you are. So I'm not really seeing where all this success is coming from. To be fair, he could have a point. And the analogy that kind of comes to my head when I think about this is if you imagine having a machine that's this incredible machine and it does all this cool stuff, but you don't have the user's manual. And so you have no idea how to use this machine. You have no idea what the potential is of this machine. Imagine for a second your smartphone or your iPhone, whatever. If you had never seen this before, if you didn't know how to work it, if you were living 50 years ago, if you didn't know about the internet, if you didn't know about computers, and you saw this iPhone and it wasn't turned on, you might think, okay, it's a good paperweight, it looks funky, but you would have no idea of the capabilities of that machine. And I feel similarly, where I didn't know how to use the machine or the vehicle that I've been given. I didn't understand how to use myself. I didn't have the user's manual for my own energy. And I didn't have a map of where I was going. And so I think if you're one of these people that are just naturally in alignment, which they definitely do exist, although I haven't come across a ton of them, but I know that they're out there. I definitely have met some. If you're one of those people that's naturally in alignment, then yeah, maybe human design isn't going to be completely life-changing for you because you already know how your machine works. You already have the map that's going to bring you to the hidden treasure. But for me, I didn't have the user's manual and I didn't have the map. So I was wandering around lost with this machine that I didn't know how to use. And human design has been so transformational for me in that sense because it's like I finally get myself. I get how I work. I get where I'm supposed to go. And when you're in alignment, everything works so much better. So when this guy is like, I don't see where this success is coming from. Yeah, I get it. If you don't understand human design and you think it just tells you who you are, and you don't understand the potential of being in alignment, or maybe you are in alignment, so there isn't that much to change. Although I would assert if you're writing comments like that on the internet, you're probably not in alignment. But anyway, so in this episode, I'm hoping to share about how you can get into alignment using your human design through my experience of getting into alignment using human design. And I'm probably going to record a separate episode that's more of like the story of the transformation, because this is going to be broken down a little bit better. So hopefully you can translate it into your life and where you can look in your design to make the kind of transformations that I have. Let's start of where I was before I found human design. And I'll go into more of these details in a different episode. But my marriage was failing. My now ex-husband and I had been separated for a couple of weeks. We got back together. Things still weren't really working. I was in a job that wasn't working for me. I had recently left the hotel industry, which was where I was building my career, but I was so miserable there. So I had gotten a job working as a VA, and although it was a really great transition for me, it definitely wasn't where I wanted to be, because I really wanted to have my own business. My money situation was not good. I was up to my eyeballs in secret credit card debt that I had hidden from my husband, because we had been living paycheck to paycheck and I had been making these investments because I really wanted to start a business. Again, talk about that some other time. I was sick. I had stomach problems for years. It was really getting in the way of my life. And I had seen doctors, I had all these tests, I had seen naturopaths, and it still nothing was improving. And I also had really bad allergies as well. And I was just, in general, miserable. I felt lost, I felt anxious, I just felt like nothing was working and that everything was so hard all the time. And so compared to where I am now, I got divorced, happily divorced. I met my current partner. I'll share the story about that in the future. I have a much better relationship with my family, and not that it was bad before, but I feel like because of human design, I get myself and I get them and I get how to be around them, so I can just relax. I know how the energy works. So I don't need to compete with certain things, and I don't need to take on the pressure that I used to. In terms of work and money, obviously I have my own business now. I love running my own business. I made more money in sales in January of this year than I did in my entire salary in my hotel job or in my virtual assistant job. So that was pretty mind-blowing. And business is so much easier now. And I'm not saying it's like a piece of cake. There's still things to learn. There's still challenges. But when I was trying to start a business before, oh my gosh, I was working 18 hours a day. I was so exhausted. Everything was so frustrating. I was so out of alignment. It was, again, I'll go into the details more in a different episode. In terms of health, understanding my human design, understanding my centers, knowing how to rest, how to express my emotions so they don't come through in other ways, that was so transformational for me. And I just feel so much more peaceful. Don't get me wrong, I still have work to do. My life isn't perfect. I'm not 100% in alignment, but I don't feel like it's on me to figure out all on my own. I really do have this level of trust that I will be guided through my strategy and authority to get to where I'm supposed to go and to feel good in the process. So let's dive into the different aspects of human design, and I'm going to share what it's given me, and hopefully you'll also be able to see for you as well. So I want to start off with type and strategy, because this is really where most people start off with human design, right? Type, strategy, and authority, these are the basic foundations that you need. So with type, I'm a manifestor, in case you didn't know that, and it really helped me to put words to this feeling that I had always had, that there was this different energy inside me or this different way of being that I didn't understand. And so I really do feel like it was that user's manual for this machine that I didn't know how to use. And it was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. I felt so understood. I felt so seen. And I didn't feel like I was doing things wrong all the time anymore. It was like, oh, I can see so clearly why this isn't working. And I felt like I finally understood the differences. I'm a manifestor. I grew up in a family of all projectors, and so I'm different from them. And although I had great parents who did their best and I think did a great job at raising me, I still had so much conditioning. and I think a lot of us do, of how we're supposed to be. And I was like such a good girl. I was a good student. I was a good dancer. I was a good daughter. And I never really thought about myself and what worked for me. I only ever thought about what worked for others, which is so detrimental for manifestors. Not that you don't ever want to think of other people, but I didn't have myself as any kind of priority. And so in terms of my type and understanding who I am and understanding how I operate, and as a manifestor, I really look at it that manifestors are designed to follow their urges and then inform. But I'll talk about that more in the manifestor episode. And so I followed my urges to learn human design, which led me to this business that I have, to teach live classes in human design, to create HD School, which is my online program. And my whole work life and business has really had such a massive impact on my whole life. And sometimes I feel like type and strategy are a little bit weird in the sense of like it's telling us how we're supposed to live. So I get it. And like I've said in probably every other episode, it's really all about experimenting. I had been learning about human design for probably a year before I really started experimenting with it and going all in, because I got to the point where I just felt so strongly that human design had something to offer me. But it wasn't until I kind of got to the point of like, things still aren't working. I feel seen, I feel understood, but like I'm not applying it. So it's not actually making that big of a difference aside from I feel a little bit better, but the circumstances of my life are still a mess. And so it wasn't until I decided to really go all in with following my strategy and authority that things really started to shift. And so the next piece being authority, which is how you're designed to make decisions in human design. I have a whole episode on it. I think it's episode 2 and episode 3 are all about authority and how to apply your authority. So if you haven't listened to that, you might want to give those a listen. And at first, authority to me, I have emotional authority. It felt so useless. Like, what's the point? I get to wait to make decisions. That's literally not helpful at all. But that's been the opposite of the truth because it's helped me so much. It's really helped me to slow down and listen to myself and listen to my intuition. And it's helped me to learn to wait for clarity where I never saw value in that before. I used to make so many spontaneous decisions when it came to getting in relationships or getting married or taking jobs and like big decisions. And a big part of that, I think, for me at the time earlier in my life was that I didn't have a lot of self-worth and self-confidence. So if there was an opportunity, I think I used to feel like I had to take it because I didn't believe that I would have a better opportunity or that I would have other options. And so I used to make really emotional decisions without realizing it. And I thought that highly emotional decisions. So when I'm like so excited about something, I thought that meant that it was a good decision because I was so excited about it. And I also made a lot of decisions out of fear and desperation versus understanding what correct decisions for me actually looked like or felt like. And I can't remember if I talked about this in the other episode, but one decision that stands out to me so clearly is when I hired my very first business coach in, 2015 or something. And it was such a high pressure sales call. And she was very manipulative in terms of emotions and digging in and making me feel really bad, which is how a lot of people still run sales calls, unfortunately. And so I invested in her program from a really emotional place, and it just wasn't a good fit. And again, everything has led me to where I am, so I'm grateful, but that was certainly not a aligned decision for me. So learning my authority, I feel like gave me this superpower of being immune to high pressure decisions because understanding my emotional authority and knowing that right decisions will allow me to take time and right decisions need time for me to get to clarity and to not be in a really high or really low emotional place. And there were so many times where I had made these spontaneous emotional decisions where I would be like, what was I thinking? Like, why would I do that? And understanding this authority helped me to understand that aspect of myself, helped me to understand why I would be making these decisions that were so out of alignment, but seemed like they were the right decisions at the time because my emotional state wasn't clear. One of my coaches right now says that when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And I think you could put it differently, I guess, for human design, where when emotions are high, clarity is low. but it's the same idea. And so understanding my authority really helped me to make good decisions. It's also been so helpful in my business, and I'll share more about this, but giving myself time is often where new ideas come in or more aligned things show up. And it's just like, oh, yes, thankfully I didn't make that decision spontaneously, or I didn't do that thing right away, because now I have a better perspective. And so when your authority keeps guiding you to get back on track and back on track, it just like I can relax that I will make good decisions. And it certainly helped a lot with reducing anxiety, which I really don't experience anymore. Okay, so the centers. Understanding the emotional center was probably the most critical in my growth and evolution. Understanding my emotional wave and the ups and the downs, and how I have big feelings about things. It's given me so much freedom and peace. I don't feel terrified of my feelings anymore. I used to feel like as soon as I was getting low on my wave, which I didn't understand what that meant before I found human design, that I was getting depressed, and it would be terrifying and I would resist it. And so I would get stuck in these lows for months. So I would be perpetuating the exact thing that I didn't want and that I was scared of happening, and I would create it happening more. So understanding my emotional energy, understanding that I'm here to express this emotional energy and that it's a source of power for me, has been so transformational, especially in my business. But I'll talk about that maybe a little bit more when I talk about the channels. Understanding the ajna, or the mind center, and that I'm not stupid. I'm actually open-minded and I can see things from different perspectives, and that I can actually move forward with things even if I don't have 100% certainty on them. That was such a game changer for me, shifting my perspective around this idea that I have to know things, that I have to have the full answers, that I have to be completely 100% sure on anything that I do. This also goes to the authority piece for me, where with emotional authority, if you're 70% sure, that's probably good enough. Also, the G center, the fact that I have an undefined G center where there is no self really to find. And that was something I had been so obsessed with for so long, of finding myself and figuring out my style and what exactly, like, who am I? I don't have to be someone. I don't have to find this person. I can just be. I don't have to dress a certain way. I don't have to act a certain way. I can just be myself as my identity continues to evolve and change and grow, and kind of just like be in the surprise and the wonder and the awe of it, of wow, how cool that I get to experience this version of myself or this next version of myself, instead of trying to be a certain way. Like, I had this idea for so long. And when I talk to a lot of undefined G centers, they have a similar experience. They really try to define themselves, where it's like, I have to dress a certain way, or I have to be this certain way, because we don't have that built-in identity, but that's totally okay. So when I was able to like just be at peace with that, and I'm not saying this is how everyone needs to operate, but I think especially for me with the undefined G, is not being so strict with figuring out where my life is going, and understanding the feeling of it and the possibility in it, and allowing it to unfold instead of trying to micromanage the unfolding or the exact direction. I never thought I was going to have a human design business, and oh my gosh, I'm so happy that I do. I love it so much. But that was just a natural unfolding. That wasn't me trying to force something to happen. The sacral center, getting this part of my energy. So when I first moved back to Canada, which was about 4 years ago now, I, for probably 2 years, was pretty burnt out from that whole experience and exhausted. And the not self theme of the sacral center is not knowing when enough is enough. And I absolutely did not know when enough is enough. I used to feel like I was going to collapse all the time. Like, I was so tired, but I didn't understand, I think, the emotional exhaustion or the energy beside, like, well, I'm sleeping enough, so I shouldn't be this tired. So I would just keep going, and I would work all the time, and I wouldn't really let myself rest. And I just, again, didn't know when enough was enough. And so learning the sacral energy and learning that I have this center open, and so my energy is going to be different from the majority of the population, has really released me from this idea that I need to keep up with other people and that I need to do the same things that other people do in order to be successful, in order to make money, in order to have a good business. And it's really not about the doing. The root center is similar. So the root center has a not self theme of I need to like hurry up and get things done so I can relax. And so understanding the center in myself, and I could see so clearly when it was like, okay, I'm just going to do this one more thing. Okay, I'm just going to do this one more thing. Okay, but I'm just going to do this one last thing and then I'll go to bed and then I'll rest. And no, you need to create your own boundaries. And I hadn't been doing that. And even with the will center or the heart center, the ego, whatever you want to call it, this whole idea of willpower, and you can really use the will center sometimes to push. And I had been pushing and pushing and pushing and learning all of these energy centers and understanding the amount of rest that I actually need to feel good and just giving myself permission to do that. And sometimes I still get really excited and work more than I quote unquote should or than my energy might want me to, but I do that for much shorter periods of time. It'll be like maybe for a couple of days or for a week if I'm working on something that I'm really excited about, but then I'll give myself a couple of days to recalibrate and get the rest that I need. The other thing with the root center is understanding the pressure dynamics, where I don't feel pressure from everybody all the time anymore. Understanding the energy centers and how they operate for me. Obviously, there's more centers to that, but those were the ones that really made a huge difference in me understanding myself, and especially healing my burnout. And that was a really big factor in me getting healthier as well. Healing the burnout, expressing my emotions, understanding the type of rest that I need. Like, I kid you not, there was a period of time where I used to fantasize about being in a coma. And that's pretty messed up. But that was a level of exhaustion and burnout that I was at, where it felt like it would be a relief if I was to like accidentally slip and hit my head and end up in a coma for a week. So not a good place to be, but that's where I was for a while. So my profile, I'm a 2-4 profile, and your profile can really help you understand your experience of life. So the 2-4 profile helped me to understand my hermit mode in terms of sometimes I'm really outgoing and I like to be around people. And then it's just like, I don't want to say that I shut down, because that's not exactly it. But I really go inside where I can see my close people. I'm happy to spend time with my partner or like really close friends, but I don't want to be out. I don't want to be around a lot of people. And often after periods of being out and being around people, I really need my hermit time to be alone, or I feel like I just can't think. I feel like I can't function. So understanding that about me and allowing myself to respect those needs has been really helpful. Also, with the 2-4 in my business, there's a sort of natural talent aspect to the second line, and the 2-4 profile also often get their talents called out of them in terms of they're recognized by other people and other people will call these out. And so it's interesting because of the natural aspect, we often don't really trust our talent, or we don't value our talent because it's something that just comes easy, and we think that we should have to work hard for things in order for it to be valuable. And so I didn't really trust myself at the time. I didn't really trust that I had anything good or anything to offer, when really it just came easy to me. So I felt like it wasn't anything that was valuable. And for me, that really showed up in my business, where I don't see my gifts. I don't see what I'm good at. And the channels and gates really helped me with that as well, which I'll get into next. But your profile can help you understand your experience in life. I have the perspective that you don't really have to do anything with your profile. I don't think you need to try and be your profile. I think your profile just naturally lends itself to your experience, but understanding your experience can be helpful where you don't have to fight it. Your profile is also made up of lines. So for me, I have a 2-4 profile. So there's 6 lines in total, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have the second line and the fourth line. But in my chart overall, I have a lot of third lines, which is very experimental. So that also helped me to understand my experience of making mistakes or learning through trial and error. And that just gave me a little bit more grace for my experience there. Okay, the channels and the gates. These are more of our specific qualities. There's 64 gates in total and 34 channels. And learning these about myself, like, oh my gosh, the first big thing they did for me was help me understand the challenges that I have built in my chart. And when I was able to understand the challenges that were there, it gave me so much more compassion for myself and for my experience. Growing up, I was not very kind to myself. I really hated myself for a lot of my youth, and I experienced depression for several years, and I just really didn't like myself. I didn't think there was anything about me to like. And it was frustrating for me because I had a pretty good childhood. I had parents that loved me. I went to dance classes. I got good grades. I had friends. And so it was just like, I don't understand why I have the things that I should have, and still I feel so terrible all the time. So understanding my gates really helped me to see the experience of the struggles that I had, because our gates have challenges and they also have gifts in them. And seeing the challenges that I had built into my chart, it was just like, oh, I'm not wrong for having these challenges. These were put in my experience. And listen, not everyone is going to experience all of the challenges that are potentials for them in their design. But if you do experience them, it's also like, yeah, okay, they're there, so that makes sense. And you don't need to stay in the challenges. There's no reason for you to get stuck in them for a long time. But if they're there and if you experience them, yeah, of course you do. By the way, if you're not sure what your gates mean, I do have a cheat sheet. You can get it at sortofspiritual.com/gates. I'll put the link in the show notes, but that way you can look up all the gates you have. And again, the gates are the numbers that you see on your body graph. So there's 64 of them in total, but you'll have probably anywhere between 13 and 23 of them maybe. Somewhere in that range you'll have highlighted. I'll explain it more in the cheat sheet of what to look for, and you'll have access to both the high expression or the gifts as well as the challenges. So you can see what challenges you have built in just like I did, and you can also see the high expression or the gifts as well. So again, me learning the gates really helped me to understand this and made it less personal, where it's just like, hey, in this game of life that I'm playing, these are the obstacles in the game. They're not there because I'm a bad person or I'm doing this wrong. These are the obstacles that are there. And so to share some of my experiences with that, for example, I have the gate 10 in my conscious and unconscious, Saturn and Uranus. And so those are planets that can be a little bit more challenging with the energies that you have in them. And I had the gate 10, which is the gate of self-love or the gate of behavior. And in its challenging expression, it can really be a victim where it's like, like nothing that I do works and why me and everything is so hard, which I very much was in for quite a while, which is not attractive for me to share with you, but it's the truth. And I really struggled with loving myself. I struggled with being disempowered, where I felt like someone else had to save me. I was very much the damsel in distress that needed saving. And I have since luckily done work in this area and really been able to transform that so I can be a lot more empowered, and I've been able to release the victim mentality. And listen, it still rears its head sometimes, but I understand the energy a lot better, and it doesn't take over like it used to. Some other challenges that are in my chart with the gate 26, I definitely had some challenges with integrity. I can't remember if I mentioned on this episode already, but the lying to my husband about credit card debt, lying to everyone about my life. It used to be like, hey, how's everything? And it's like, oh my God, everything's so good. Yeah, things are great. Love my job, love my marriage. Everything's amazing. We're moving around the world. Things are so good. No, they were awful. I was so miserable. But I really lacked a lot of integrity in terms of my finances, in terms of my health, in terms of being true to myself, in terms of being true to my word. I also have the gate 9, and so that can turn a bit obsessive sometimes or just have very scattered energy. I have the gate 49, which is nicknamed the divorce gate, and yes, I am divorced. And it can be very black and white energy where you can cut people or things off really quickly. I have the gate 47, which can really indicate struggles with mindset in the challenging expression. I have the gate 37, which wants harmony and peace, but I often try to get that harmony and peace at my own expense and at the lack of my own inner peace. I have the gate 6, which is about conflict or friction, but there's a fear there associated with the fear of who you really are. And I remember the first time I read that and I was like, oh, wow. Again, I was so out of integrity with myself that, yeah, there was so much fear of who I was and sharing that with people, even though there wasn't anything, that wild. And even if there is, cool, express yourself, love yourself. But it's just, yeah, it was really funny seeing that written down on paper. 36 is, I like to call the rabbit hole gate, but it also has a fear of inadequacy associated with it and often will jump down like rabbit hole after rabbit hole. And I was certainly doing that, looking for answers outside of myself. And human design technically still is something that's outside of myself, but I really see it as something that has helped me come back to myself and has directed me inwards to understand myself and to see who I am and how I operate. So those were certainly some of the challenges that learning the gates in my human design really just gave a voice to. And the channels and the gates also helped me to see some of my gifts. For example, I have the gate 23, which is assimilation. So there's a gift there about sharing information in a way that makes sense and is easy to understand. So hopefully I'm doing that here on the podcast where you can understand this information and digest it easily. In terms of my channels, I have the 2212 channel of openness, and one of the things that really made sense to me about this channel in my experience was this idea of shyness and boldness, where it's very moody. So it has this kind of on-off quality, and if I am not in the mood for something, it is almost impossible for me to do it, especially when it comes to creative things, and this is a very creative channel. And so understanding that, where it's like, oh, that's why I can't force myself to do things, but when I'm in the mood, it's like boom, boom, boom. It's so easy and it's so good and I love it. And so it's helped me to, again, respect this quality of myself and work when I'm in this mood and where things are so easy and just flowing and good, and then not when they're not there. And the 4426 channel of transmission has a theme of transmitting truth. And so it's helped to give me peace in terms of the work that I do and sharing what I'm sharing, where it's like, okay, this is an aspect of me. This is something that I'm here to do. And that leads me to my incarnation cross. And that can help us see what the storyline of our life can potentially be. And when I first read about my incarnation cross years ago, I was like, I do not relate to this at all. I'm the cross of rulership. And so there's all this stuff in the cross about being a leader and taking care of your people and gathering together and all this. And I was like, what? That is so, it sounds nice. I would like to be this person, but I don't think that's me. And flash forward 4 years into my human design journey, and it's like, oh yeah, I can see this. I can see how I want to be generous with my resources and share the information and help out other people and take care of my people. And I still have so much growth and alignment to do, but these are really some of the areas that human design has totally helped me transform. So as a little recap, my type and strategy was finding the user's manual for my machine. So I understood how to operate. I understood how to use my machine. And all of a sudden, I didn't have all this massive resistance. As a manifester, I used to ask everybody else's opinion all the time. I would get feedback on everything of, what do you think I should do this? And what do you think about that? And that is the last thing that I'm supposed to be doing as a manifester. I'm supposed to be informing people of what I'm doing, not asking their permission to be able to do things. My authority really helps me to learn how to make correct decisions for myself, just like your authority can do for you as well. Understanding my centers helped me learn how my energy actually works and just gave voice to so many areas of myself that was like, oh, I get why I'm like this. This is okay. I'm not wrong for being this way. My profile helped me to understand my life experience and helped me to nurture and take care of myself. My channels and my gates helped me to see my strengths in my channels, and some of my gates as well helped me to see the challenges that I have built in. And then my incarnation cross just helped me to get a better picture of myself. And I don't know that I'm going to talk about incarnation crosses on the podcast, but I do talk about that in HD School, which will be opening soon, by the way. So get on the wait list. I'll have the link in the show notes if you're interested in that. But incarnation crosses can really help you to see when you're on track, because when you're in alignment, your incarnation cross just naturally plays out. So the more I resonate with my incarnation cross, the more I'm like, okay, cool, this is good. There are definitely other aspects to human design besides what I've covered, but these were ones that really had a huge impact on my journey and my transformation, and I believe can also do the same for you in terms of experimenting with your strategy and authority, in terms of getting to know yourself through your gates and channels. I'm doing a series right now on channels on my Instagram, which will help you understand the channels and the gates a little bit better as well. So follow along at sort.of.spiritual on Instagram. I'll link that in the show notes for you too, but follow along and see what channels you have. But this is really where all the transformation has come from for me. A huge part of it was through the strategy and authority, absolutely. But another part of it was understanding the gates, the channels, and the centers, where it's like, this is who I am. This is how I operate. This is okay. Because sometimes with your strategy and authority, it's kind of like, this is weird. I don't get it. How is this like, can I really do this? I don't know. But when you can see the whole picture of like, no, this is actually how I'm designed to be. This is okay. These challenges are okay. These strengths are actually here. These things that I hope I'm good at, that I would like to be good at, like they're actually built in for me. And one last piece that I'll leave this with is how it's really helped me to release comparison, because I can see very clearly in my design how I am designed to be who I am. And I can see other people and how they are designed to be who they are. Where before I would go down these spirals of, oh my gosh, this person's like this and I should be like this way. And here's an actual example of it. I have quite a few people with some activism designs in their chart. And if you're curious what that is exactly, the incarnation cross of tension is often associated with activists, especially if you have the gate 38 and 39 on the conscious side. 38 is the gate of the fighter, 39 is the gate of provocation. And so when you add those together in the cross of tension, it really can create people who are activists. And I'm not saying that everybody is, but I've certainly seen it many times. And I have some friends that have this incarnation cross, and I used to look at them and think, oh God, Katie, what's wrong with you? How come you're not more like that? How come you're not more outspoken? How come you're not better at being like that? And then it was like, oh, because they're designed to be that way, and I'm designed to be the way that I am. And it's okay. There's room for all of us. We all need these different skills. We all need to be here. We're all designed to be here. I'm so grateful that they have the skills that they have, and I'm grateful that I have the skills that I have, because we all contribute in different ways. And so from that perspective, it's really released a lot of the comparison that I used to do. Okay, so that's that for today's episode. I'm going to go more into my actual story of transformation at some point in the future, because it was a pretty wild journey at some points. But I really hope that helped you to get a glimpse of how human design has contributed to my life, at how it's contributed to my success, and to understand that it can do the same for you. And hopefully this episode's a little bit of a roadmap of what to look at and how to apply it to your life. Like I said, I have a cheat sheet for the gates as well as the channels actually, which I will link both of these in the show notes below so that you can understand these qualities about yourself as well. If human design is something that is also calling you like it called me, I have an online program called HG School that teaches the human design system in 16 weeks or more. It's self-paced, so you can take as much time as you want, but you can speed through it if you want to as well. The doors will be opening again soon, so get on the wait list. And if you're listening to this beyond when it was first released, you can still get on the wait list and you'll get updated with whenever we are opening enrollment next. So it will be opening soon. I'm doing some cool upgrades to this next version of the program, which will be launching in September 2021. So get on the wait list. I am so excited to see you on the inside if it's something that is aligned for you. If you have any questions, send me a DM on Instagram. If this has helped you understand how human design can contribute to your life, if you download the cheat sheets and have any ahas, send me a DM, let me know. I always love to hear from you. I love to hear your stories. And I hope you have the most beautiful day, and I will see you next time.